Good afternoon, and welcome to another episode of the RK Leadership Podcast, where we empower tomorrow's leaders through the sharing of knowledge, experience, and inspiring stories. I'm your host, Rob Cameronport, and my very special guest today is Reggie Waterman. Before I pass it on to you to introduce yourself, Reggie, I want to thank you so much for spending the day here with me today, or the next hour or so. And I greatly appreciate your time. And why don't you take it away and introduce yourself a little bit to the audience?
Yeah, Rob, thank you for having me. And quite the setup, I must say. It's like I feel like I'm in like Joe Rogan's studio right now. So I'm super excited to obviously dive into a conversation with you. And just quick introduction about me, just a guy that wants to do stuff.
Nice.
But what kind of stuff? It's just about making impact in the world, right? So founder of Next 10, which is a not-for-profit organization where we help people, but we help business owners as well as 9-to-5ers really scale up their lifestyle. So what does that mean? It means just going after what you want in this world, because we know that life is too short, and it's going beyond your fears and breaking through, getting to the other side to live the life that you want on your terms. Outside of that, I'm a brand director at Yorkville University.
Nice.
And, helping the brand team breathe some new life into the brand. We're a private university, and at the end of the day, it's about making impact in people's lives too, from an academic standpoint. So that's near and dear to my heart as well.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Thank you very much for that. So, Reggie, why don't you walk us through your journey and how you got to where you are today? And what part of those stories do you think that will have an impact that you want to share with people today?
Geez, I don't even know if we have a whole hour for that. I don't even know. But if I was to focus on specific elements of the journey, a lot of ups and downs. If I kind of go back to just starting my journey as, getting into my career, right? Being in, just even before that was like school. And being a single dad at the age of tender age of 21.
Nice.
Right. Trying to navigate that new world as a father, and then fast forward, having another kid, so a daughter. So I have 2 kids. Beautiful. But juggling life, right, between work, kids, home life, all the other things, right, that we have to take care of. But in terms of my career, a lot of time was spent in telecommunications, working for Rogers and Bell for about 12 years. And within the marketing department there, when I transitioned from telco, that piece to the story was like my catalyst to everything that changed for me. At the 12-year mark, it was the first time I ever been impacted for my job. So first time I was ever laid off. And these were just due to unseen and circumstances. So in that particular time, I was just kind of, it was a shock to the system. Anybody that's ever gotten laid off, it's like you're thinking about, okay, well, how am I going to pay my bills? How am I going to, satisfy all my other financial obligations? What are my kids going to think about me, right?
That's right.
And so forth. And your identity is so tied to that one particular area or your job or that industry. And you're like, well, what do I do next? But I remember that day, and I went across the street from the, this is the time at Rogers, and I went to visit a friend. His name is Damian Wilson. He was right across the street working at Manulife at the time. And I told him the news, and I'm, all shook, and I'm like all emotional. I'm like, what am I going to do? And he goes, you know what? I'm so glad this happened to you. I'm like, what do you mean you're glad this happened to me? I just got fired. Like, I'm just like, you know what I mean? Like, come on. And he's like, this is going, like, God is really going to have you right now, and he's going to show you something that you never seen before. And at that point in time, I was like, dude, you must be smoking something before you started work. But he was right. That situation catapulted me into discover gifts and talents that I never thought that was possible. And I sit here in front of you now because of that instance, because back then I was just in my little tight bubble. But navigating new waters and stepping out of my comfort zone is something that I had to explore, going through a bunch of different exercises when it came to developing my mindset, watching and listening to motivational speakers like Les Brown. I would watch Joel Osteen. I went to Tony Robbins, his
Nice.
Unleash the Power Within. Those moments during that point in time when I was in transition of trying to find a new job really catapulted me to the next level. So I thank God for that moment, because who knows, I would have probably just had that same cap that I had
Yeah.
on the whole time that I'm gonna climb this corporate ladder.
Yeah. That's right.
But yeah.
Awesome. So you talked about Reggie, and this is something a lot of people struggle with, is the fear and
Mhm.
the discomfort. Can you talk to us about how you got, what was a pivotal moment that you got over that fear, or what helped you get over that fear? Aside from watching the motivational videos and whatnot, like what triggered you to turn that switch on and say, "Hey, this is it. I had enough of that."
I would say getting still was number one.
Mm,
Getting still and really having a moment to yourself to kind of reflect.
mm.
What do I wanna do when I grow up? Even though I was still obviously, I'm an adult at
Yeah,
that point in time, I still am, but recognizing who you are beyond what you thought you were supposed to be. Realizing that, hey, you're now in a situation where you you're facing the unknown. The quicker you come to acceptance of your circumstances is the faster you will get to the outcome that you truly desire.
that's right.
So when you recognize that fear, it's saying, well, what if I go beyond the fear? What's on that other side? Right? And I think you got to do a lot of mind hacks. You have to do a lot of visualization
Mm,
exercises to kind of figure out and think about, well, where do I want to be? What does that look like? How am I showing up? How am I walking in this life? How am I interacting with other people? Um, and understanding that, there's a lot of fear of failure, right? People have that fear, but recognizing it as is, but also having a knowing and understanding that there is so much growth in the failures and the mistakes that we make. So it's recognizing all those elements, taking a look at it and flipping it on its head to kind of say, you know what? Who cares what people think about me if I fail?
that's right.
At least I'm trying.
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. So, Reggie, you talked about Next 10, being the founder of Next 10. How did how did the vision for Next 10 come to life, and what leadership qualities were essential to bringing that vision to reality?
Start at a bar, right? Like all of the great ideas, they always start at a
Yeah.
bar. You need your pint of beer, you need your napkin that where you place your beer on there because the napkin is like your
That's
piece of
right.
paper where you're gonna write down your ideas and your vision.
Yes.
But I remember this was January 2023. The leading up to February, which would have been the month that I was taking off to go to Costa Rica for a year because I was going to be working there remotely.
Hmm.
But I was sitting in a bar with my friend Kareem and I, and we were just chatting and talking about networking events. That topic just came up, and but even before we got to the networking event, we talked about just connection in Toronto.
Mm.
We felt that the connection wasn't there. It seemed like everybody was somewhat disconnected because obviously there's a new energy since the pandemic, right? The pandemic kind of put us in a mode of isolation, of course. Coming out of that, we still see people being shy, being just drawn to just themselves.
Yeah.
And then we dove into the idea of, when we reflect on networking events, we felt that a lot of them were just very surface level. You kind of come in and you do the song and dance of, hey, nice to meet you. What's your name? Rob? Oh, Rob, nice to meet you. What do you do? Right? It's like you dive right into like the
Yeah.
what you do.
Yeah.
Because the what you do will tell me who you are. So I think,
Yeah.
but that's not true.
That's right.
So we thought about that for a second. Then we thought about, okay, well, after that introduction, at the end of the conversation, usually it goes to, hey, Rob, do you have a business card? And you may or may not have one. But if you do, and you give me your card, I'll say, thank you, Rob. I want to connect with you.
Yeah.
And then, Rob, what usually happens after that? Do we usually connect?
No.
Exactly. Right? So that kind of sparked the idea of, hey, what if we, facilitate a series of networking events, but really do it different in a sense where we could help people maintain and sustain connection,
Mm.
right? And we said, okay, cool. That's the premise for it. What else can we add? And what are we going to call this thing? Well, what if we think about helping people think about what their next 10 years of their lives will be,
Ah,
right? And people may say, well, and a lot of people say this, like, well, what is this next 10 thing? I'm like, think about your next 10 years. Like, I can't even think about what I'm going to do tomorrow. Okay, got that. And I love that for you.
yeah.
But I'm going to love you even more if you really visualize what your next 10 years of your life is going to be.
Mhm.
Who are you going to be? How are you going to show up? How are you going to interact with people? What's that vibration that you have? Is it going to be positive? Is it going to be, high energy?
Yeah.
And if you could reflect on that for a quick second, and then I want you to start thinking about living that right now. Because I believe that if you start living in that vibration, you'll start to manifest all the elements leading back up to your next 10 years. And then that's going to be a part of your journey. So, in terms of how we got started, the bar, networking, building connections, meaningful, intentional connections, but doing it in a different and programmed, structured way that we have to actually hold people's hands to kind of say, hey, we want you two to connect, or we want you as a group of people, collective, to
That's right.
connect. And that's what we're doing.
Awesome. No, that's definitely a great initiative, Reggie. And I want you to talk to us about, to the young folks out there, the importance of networking. I know networking was fairly big
Mhm.
prior to the COVID days. In my generation, it was very important for you to go out and meet people and build those relationships, whether you wanted to get a job somewhere or just pick somebody's brain in terms of skills, mentorship, etc. But now I see the younger generation these days where um, I don't know if they're still accustomed to going to networking events or they're afraid of it. What's your kind of recommendation to the young folks out there and the importance of networking? And the second part of that question is, what do you say to the folks that are introverts? So when I walk in a room,
Mhm.
I'm afraid to go and like even shake somebody's hand or say hi to someone because I don't even know them and I feel uncomfortable. How do you make people feel relaxed and ease at your events?
Yeah, so great questions. So for the youth, as simple as I'm about to say, this concept, it's kind of I'm stealing from Nike.
Yeah.
Instead of saying just do it, I'll say do it, but do it often.
Mm.
Now, do it often means that you are building new muscle. You're going to the gym, you're doing
Yes.
reps, right? Think of it
Yes.
of going to networking events as going to the gym. The more frequent you go to the gym or networking,
Mhm.
the more your muscles expand when I'm going to the gym, right?
Yes.
But when I think about networking, well, the more I go to networking events, what expands? My network, right?
Yeah.
So if you think about it in that parallel, in that instance, that's the power of networking. Now, it also means you could even set a goal for yourself, right? And then this is what I've done in the past. When I was working at Rogers way back when, I would say once a month, I'm going to have a coffee chat
Mm.
with somebody in a different department. And that was just to kind of get my feet wet, build a rhythm and starting
Nice.
to engage with different people. So when you set a goal, at least you're holding yourself accountable for at least trying to achieve it. It doesn't have to be that big. Remember, it's just I said once a month,
Yep.
right? So if you scale that out across the year, that's 12 people I've met. But so that's one example. Um, Now another for especially for introverts too, sometimes you want to take baby steps to help you feel comfortable, right? Again, using the gym analogy, it's like your first time in the gym, you're not gonna go, bench press 200 pounds off the bat, right? You got to
Yeah.
work your way up. You may start with 50 pounds, and the 50-pound comparison here in terms of within the networking spaces. You know what? I'm going to set a goal where I'm going to meet 3 people, and those 3 people that I meet, I'm
Mm.
going to get their either their LinkedIn, or I'm gonna
Yep.
get their email, whatever the case may be, right? Um, that's the f that's the first goal. After that, well, maybe the second event I go to, I want to go for 6 people. Third event, maybe 10 people, but work your way up, right? And then always think about, well, how can what questions can I ask people? Don't always ask, what do you do?
Yeah.
Ask them a different question. When's the last time you felt amazing?
Yeah. Yeah.
Get them to think about that. And you'll be fascinated when you ask that question to people because they're like, oh, when was the last time I felt amazing? Pause. And then all of a sudden you see this rush in them.
Yeah.
Their energy changes because they remember that moment
Yeah.
when they felt amazing. And then that's when people start to feel comfortable and open up to you. So that would be my advice for young people, introverts, in terms of what makes Next 10 different in terms of the networking experience. Well, we kind of say we're TEDx on steroids. What do we mean by that is, if you think about, you've watched TEDx, or maybe
Yep.
you've been to a TEDx,
Yep.
right? It's more of a one-way conversation, right? You have an inspirational keynote, but then what happens after that? Nothing, right?
Nothing.
Nobody talks. So we figured, okay, well, how do we blend in an element of inspiration, get a keynote,
Mm.
and we'll get 2 of them. First one will go up. They'll talk for 15 minutes. After that, we now then have coaches, or what we call breakthrough facilitators, manage a series of breakout sessions. And these facilitators will have their respective group, and they'll talk to them about specific topics related to either entrepreneurship, 9 to 5, career advancement, mindset, spirituality, so forth. But it's to engage with conversation, to get people
Yes.
participating, as opposed to just being spectators. They can now be on the field and participate. So that's pretty much our key ingredient, and that's what makes us a lot different. And that's pretty much the feedback that we get from a lot of people that attend our events. They appreciate that aspect. Like, oh, now I get to engulf in conversation with other people that I never thought I would engage with.
That's right.
So we're kind of we're creating a platform and being that bridge for connection.
Awesome. That's what I was just gonna ask you is, being gone to like various network events, there's some that, people aren't engaged in.
Mhm.
How do you keep people engaged? So that's a great method to keep everyone involved. And it breaks the ice for a lot of people when someone else, approaches them, starts the conversation, etc.
Mhm.
So, keep up that great work, and hopefully, you will blow up because I see like networking events. I think we need more of them,
Mhm.
and we need more impactful networking events, because people do feel lost at a certain point of their life. And it's great to connect with other people that can help them
Yes.
get out of that funk, right?
One thing that you just said is that kind of struck a chord. A lot of us feel lost.
Yep.
And that's kind of like the reason why we created this as well, is because we want to help people feel found. We want them to find their tribe, the people that they connect with, but also give them a guiding light to what their future could look like.
Yep.
And it's always important to be around other people that they could learn from. And we got to constantly, and I'm still learning every single day, even from this conversation that we're having right now. I'm still learning from you. I'm learning from the way that you conduct your podcast. I'm learning from the nice blazer that you got, right? From a fashion sense, right? Pocket square is on point though, brother.
Thanks, man. Thank you.
Yeah.
No, we're all here to learn from each other. And I think if you've got that mentality that, hey, I'm going to learn something new and I haven't, hit the ceiling, you'll never hit that ceiling.
Mm-hmm.
There's so much to learn in this world. So I think you're providing that platform for people to get out there and get out of their comfort zone as well.
Yes.
So appreciate you doing that.
Thank you.
So in an ever-changing, business landscape, Reggie, how do you ensure that Next 10 stays ahead of the curve and remains relevant?
By watching Elon Musk. No, just joking. Just gotta watch out for him. I just want that cyber cat. By the way, I'm sorry. This is a shameless plug for the cyber cat. Maybe a robot, maybe one or two. Who knows? But yeah. How do we in today's modern world? If you think about it, we are evolving, and I brought up Elon Musk on purpose, not on purpose, but even that instance, think about how fast technology is evolving.
Yeah.
Right? How do we stay on pace? Right? Everyone talks about AI, but do a lot of us, in terms of adoption, do a lot of us know how to leverage AI for our day to day? And people might get scared about, well, what's it going to mean for our jobs? When I think about Next 10, it's keeping up with pace, kind of similar to what AI has been doing, but do it on a level that's going to humanize the experience when it comes to networking and building connections.
Nice.
So we want to keep a pulse on market trends, stay on a path, and understand, well, what's impacting people in their day to day, whether it be mental health issues, whether it be physical issues or ailments that people might have. Even within that realm, it's like, okay, well, how do we brighten people's spirits, right, and uplift them and help them to get to a high vibe spirit, right? They might be having some mental health issues. Well, how can we inject them with some fuel and energy that might actually get them throughout the day? I remember having one of our keynote speakers attend our April event this year. It was Quasi, and he said, "You know what? Like, thank you for inviting me to this because I've just been down and out, and I actually needed to be around people and do this." So again, that's just one example of just being mindful of what everybody's going through. You talked about everyone being lost. So how can we find out new trends or new pathways to kind of help them get back on their path so they actually have a vision for their life? But it's always looking for ways for us to innovate the experience.
Awesome. That's great. Now, when it comes to leadership, one thing I always talk about is enabling and empowering your team. So how do you inspire or empower your teams and have them step into leadership roles within your organization?
It's about putting people in places and spaces where they could succeed. It means putting them in uncomfortable situations so that they could actually learn new skills or even discover something that they never, gifts and talents that they never thought that they even had.
That's right.
Right. I remember that's what some of my bosses used to do for me, growing up as a pup and in my career. And it helped me big time. I used to be stuttering Stanley whenever I was in front of we had to, present a variety of different programs and concepts to get buy-in from, the executive teams. And I remember being in an environment where I'm at this executive boardroom around these VPs and directors. I'm like, okay, how am I going to talk to these people? And I remember just stuttering. And I used to hate going to this forum.
Yeah.
Right. But if it wasn't for putting the reps in, doing that, and then recognizing that, hey, I need to grow in this area in terms of presentation, it then influenced me and motivated me to take or enroll in Toastmasters.
Nice.
So that's what I do for my people. It's about putting them in spaces where they could be a light. Even though they may not see that within them right now, they're going to learn something along the way that is going to transcend and, again, be that springboard to their growth. Another way I do it is to just simply by empowering them, coming up with ideas.
Yep.
Contributing. A lot of us have probably been in environments where it's usually that senior leader is always dictating. The best leader kind of just, sits back, listens out for what their people have to say, and
That's
then
right.
respond, right, and guide. So that's the way I'd approach it.
Good. Awesome. So I'm sure at some point of your career, you've had to make some tough leadership decisions.
Mm-hmm.
What's your advice about navigating through that? And how do you even what process do you use to go through making tough decisions and again mindset?
Yeah. So as a leader, to your point, that's par for the course,
Yeah,
right? You're
that's
gonna
right.
have to make some tough decisions. I remember taking on a role. I'm not gonna mention the organization, but they mentioned to me off the top when I first started, you decide who gets to stay on the bus or who has to come off the bus
Yeah,
because we're recognizing that there's within the dynamics of the team, there's something not right. And me coming in, I don't know what it is, right? I don't know what the variables are, right? I'm kind of blindsided, so I have to figure it out. I have to assess the situation. I'm not
yeah,
going to make a decision, within the first month. And at the same time, we're dealing with humans, and when you're dealing with humans, they're dealing with
yes.
their obligations,
Thank you.
right? Their family obligations. When I look at you, when I look at Sarah, when I look at Bill, when I look at Kevin or Stacy, what leaders have to recognize
Yeah,
is the fact that a lot of us in these environments are wearing masks.
yes,
So what do I mean by that? Well, Stacy might be going through something at home.
that's right.
She's not gonna tell everybody about her business at work.
Yep,
Kevin might be going through a divorce, right? Sarah's son might be just acting up and it's, you know, having a toll on her. So when they come to work and they have this mask on, you don't know what's going on at home, and you have to recognize the fact that
yep,
depending on what's going on at home is going to have an impact on how they actually produce and at work. And people are trying their best; they're trying to do what they can. So that's why I wanted to, in that situation, give a year runway
mm,
to actually assess the situation. And for upper management, they might feel like a year. That's a long time. But within that year, I need to not just my assessment is not just to observe. My approach to it is, okay, well, how can I coach and how can I lead this person?
yes, yes,
Is this person coachable? What are their identify what their blockers are, right? Build a connection with them. Because again,
yeah,
I'm not trying to get into like their personal business, but I really want to understand, okay, well, is there something going on at home that might be impacting you on your day to day?
How do you build that connection?
And that's a good question.
How do you tap into that emotion? What would you do as a leader? Like, how do you tap into, making sure
Mm-hmm.
that they open up with you?
It's being, as cliche as this may sound, being authentic.
Boom.
And I remember taking acting
There you
class,
go.
and our teacher said, and I'll ask you this question, Robin. It's okay. There's no wrong answers here, but I'll give you his response if you don't align. How do you be authentic? What is the way of being authentic?
Be fearless.
Okay, that's a good answer. His answer was, just be authentic. Just be authentic.
Yeah.
Just be you.
Yeah.
So how do I get down to the crux of just building that connection? Is recognize that I'm human, you're human.
That's right.
We all got issues. We're all broken.
Yeah.
Right?
One way or the other. Yeah.
One way or the other. That's just it. And we're just trying to figure this life out.
Yeah.
And we're going to spend the rest of our lives out.
That's right.
So when you come to that, when you interact with that person, you open up a little bit too. Empathy goes a long way.
Yes.
So I need to understand who you are. What do you love to do? What are you passionate about? What are you struggling with? And then I could offer assistance if you are open to it. But I'm not going to come into a space and be like, try to use my title or my power or influence, whatever the case may be, to
That's
say
right.
you need to do this or you're not good at that without understanding who you are and your capabilities.
So I'm going to ask you a two-part question here.
Mm-hmm.
So just having said what you said to me right now, if you were to look at society or organizations today, why do you think that stuff isn't happening from the leaders or the managers of, again, I'm not painting everybody with the same brush, but there are some people struggling with that. Why do you think that is?
It's part of a question that you um asked me, but it's just that F word, fear. I think society is scared to society is made up of a system,
Yes.
right? An old age system that is actually starting to evolve. We could see it before our eyes, but there are some traditional means in terms of how we operate as as business operations and so forth. And I think for a lot of leaders, there's a lot of insecure leaders out there
That's right.
that may think, well, I need to protect my job and act a certain way.
Yes.
And I cannot act human as much as I want to act human out of fear that if I become too empathetic, that I may potentially may come across too soft,
That's right. Yes.
or someone might
Too
take
weak.
advantage, or too weak.
Yeah.
But that is just an insecurity in itself. Because I don't believe in that. I don't subscribe to that. I think at the end of the day, you're going to be respected just based on who you are, what you do, and how you interact with people.
Absolutely. So my second part of the question is, I'm a huge believer that you shouldn't lead people, or you won't be able to lead people before you learn to lead yourself.
Mm.
And that's where, you tackle the insecurities, you tackle your fears, you tackle your limitations, you strengthen your mindset, because now you're in front of all these people
Hmm.
and you lead by example, right? And you can't just pretend you're a leader, and then when you walk out that office and you come home, you put your hat away.
Hmm.
So what's your take on that, and how important is self leadership in these kind of roles?
I'm glad that you brought that up because how are you supposed to lead people if you haven't really done the work on yourself?
Yes.
To
Yes.
me, I think about it this way. There's and Simon says Sisnek always gave up this example too, where it's like, a lot of leaders have been inherited leadership positions just based on their ability to actually produce. So
Mhm.
you might be a individual contributor, but you are excelling at what you do best,
Yes.
right? Doesn't necessarily mean you're a good people leader. Just means that you're a good individual contributor. But the organization has recognized that, well, Bobby has been performing at an impressive rate, and he's been here for 5 years, and he's killing it. He's crushing it. I think he's ready for management. Meanwhile, he's never managed anybody in his life. So now you're asking Bobby to manage 5 different people or whatever the number is.
Yeah.
When he's just really all about his day-to-day self. A leader has been able to self-reflect, do the work, and the work comes in a variety of different ways, whether it's a mindset, whether it's just the homework needed to guide people, have a vision, set goals, set parameters, set expectations, and communicate,
That's right.
right? Bobby is just in that lane of just do. That's
Yep.
just him. So I think you're absolutely right. It's like giving the leader has to have the tools in the toolbox in order to lead other people, and he has to build that toolbox for himself or herself.
Awesome. So Reggie, I'm an employee in your company,
Mm-hmm.
and I come to you and say, hey, I want to be put in a leadership role by next year, X years or X months, whatever it is the case may be. How do you train people, or how do you get them to that leadership role? What do you do?
Yes, I love this one because it's about I like to help people build a success roadmap,
Mhm.
and the success roadmap comes in different forms. I actually have a framework called the time matrix.
Nice.
And the time matrix is a 4-quadrant matrix. On the top left-hand corner, I would sit down with my folks, and I would say, okay, well, top left-hand corner, tell me what you don't want in your life.
Mm.
And the reason why I start that way is because these are all the things that you just don't want. These are all the negative things,
Yeah.
right? Whether it be, well, I don't want to be micromanaged. I don't want to be, let's say, I don't want to come into the office every single day. Maybe that's somebody's desire, right? Um, I don't want to be doing mundane tasks. Let's get that out the way. Let's clear it because now it's just out of our system. Okay, top right hand corner. Uh, what do you want to do for your life or your career?
Mhm.
Make a list. Well, I want to feel empowered. I want to work remotely. I want to, um, do meaningful work. Right. Bottom left hand corner is what are your superpowers?
Mm.
So, what are these gifts and talents that I have? Could be I have excellent presentation skills. I have the ability to lead and influence people. Um, I'm great at putting PowerPoints together. Just to give you examples.
Yeah.
And then on the bottom right hand corner is this time next year. So this time next year is this is where the manifestation part comes in. So because I know what I want out of my job or my career, I know what my superpowers are. Now I'm taking those two quadrants and I'm aligning it to this time next year. I'm in a senior manager position, right?
Yep.
I am leading a team of 5. I am participating in 5 podcasts. I am going to be on stage to deliver a presentation on AI, whatever the case may be. So this is the most powerful quadrant of all 4 because this is going to set the tone in terms of the direction that you're going. So your question about, okay, well, I'm an employee. This is where I want to get to in a year's time. We've now mapped it out. And now as a leader, it's my job to make sure that you get to where you want to be next year.
But is it solely on you?
No, it's not solely on me.
Good.
So as a leader, I'm there to provide guidance. I'm there to provide a different perspective. I'm there to remove any sort of blockers that might get in your way. And it's my duty to check in with you, whether it be a monthly or quarterly basis, to see how you're progressing. But at the end of the day,
Yes.
the onus is on you to take action.
Yep. And that's one of the most important things you just mentioned is following up regularly.
Mm-hmm.
It's not just a once a year ticky box that, hey, you know what? We had this conversation. I'm a leader.
Yes,
Right?
exactly. And that's it.
Yeah.
But a lot of people follow that formula,
That's
unfortunately.
right. They do. Right?
It's because they don't know how.
Yeah. So you mentioned Simon Sinek. So I have to ask you this question.
Mm-hmm.
What's your why?
My why. Damn, why'd I bring up Simon Sinek? Just joking. My why is to, and I don't want to be surface. I don't want to get all surface level with this one. I want to go a little bit deeper. So my why is to inject a sense of purpose into the individuals that I interact with and connect with. My why is to demonstrate the art of the possible, taking into account the limitations that we may put on ourselves and or absorb the external projections of others, and to push that to the side and really focus on what we truly want in this world.
Nice. So it's a great segue to my next question for you, which is, we all deal with challenges or setbacks in life. How do you overcome challenges and setbacks while maintaining positive and growth-oriented mindset?
Woo, that's a journey in itself, sir.
It sure is.
That is something that I'm still working through, but I don't think it ever stops. So what I mean by that is I'm constantly working at
Nice.
how to overcome challenges. What I'm getting better at now than before is accepting things as quickly as possible versus dwelling on them for months, years.
Yes.
because you just continuously drag that with you as you go through your day to day. Another practice that's going to be ongoing forever, I feel, until as long as I'm on this earth, is surrendering.
Nice.
So surrendering
Love it.
to whatever shows up, whatever outcomes are produced, and so forth. Which then brings me to the art of detachment. So detaching myself from various outcomes and having these high expectations on people, places, and things.
Yep.
When I detach myself from an outcome, it allows me to be fully present and really appreciate the situation that I'm dealing with. Every challenge that I've faced, when I reflect on it, whether it be a year or two later, I have gratitude for it.
Nice.
Because without those challenges, it wouldn't have allowed me to discover new things about me. And that discovery in its own, in the moment when those challenges hit you, you can't really see it, what it's doing for you. But eventually you will, and you'll be like, oh, so that's why that happened.
Yeah.
You're just so grateful for it.
So I'm going to ask you a question where I should know what your answer is. If you had to go back to the 20-year-old Reggie, what advice would you give the 20-year-old Reggie that you've kind of, as far as what you know today?
Instead of advice, can I take it a different approach?
Sure.
You are in for a rocky, dumpster fire, rocky road. Oh my gosh. Well, at the 20-year mark, I'm gonna tell you, this is probably like your last year that you're gonna have for just yourself, because you're about to become a father the next year. So giddy up, sir.
Yeah.
So there's that. And that's going to come with a whole set of challenges, even though, your son is a blessing to you.
Yeah.
You are going to really struggle with dealing with what other people think about you. And that's going to torment you for a decade at least. And by the way, on the way to that decade, you're going to have another one. Right? And as you continue going and when you think about your career, as they say on the internet, like, oh yeah, everything's gonna be A-okay, right? No, it's not. You're gonna get to a point where people are going to pretty much look for ways to shut you down.
Yep.
But you got to keep going.
That's right.
You got to persevere. You've been through a lot, even just growing up to this point. But all that is preparing you for all the different types of people that you're going to come. Do you remember in grade 4 when Mrs. King pushed you down? Do you remember that? That's what I'll say to my younger self. I'll say, well, you're going to be dealing with a bunch of Mrs. Kings, but you just got to continue to get back up and continue to persevere. But I will say this to you. As timid as you are at 20, you're going to start to lead a bunch of people that you never thought you would be leading ever.
Amazing.
Yeah.
So the real question is, would you change anything?
Besides my underwear? I'm joking. Would I change anything? Yeah, there's certain things I would change. There were certain things I would change. I would change certain relationships, that's for sure. But
would you? Because remember, you said all this stuff, this journey.
I know.
Taught you to who you are today.
But now you're giving me the choice. You're giving me the chance. You're giving me the...
It's a trick question, Reggie. I'm kidding.
I could have had Cindy Crawford. I'm just joking. I'm just joking.
Half of the people won't even know who she
I know it's
is.
true. Cindy Crawford. Who's that?
Google her.
No, okay, but honestly, for the most part, you can't change it. I wouldn't change it. It did really and truly shape me for who I am, because without those challenges, I wouldn't have that. Like, they the saying about, your test is gonna be a testimony.
Yeah.
That's kind of where I'm at right now.
That's right.
And I think those tests, those challenges, have an opportunity to be shared for others as inspiration. And you know what? There's that the concept of the power of one. And
I love that.
if my story can impact that one person and make a huge difference,
yes,
and that's all we need.
Yep. That's how we create our story, right?
Mm-hmm.
You're never gonna escape rough times, challenges, the unknown. So that's why I always struggle with this question: is why would you want to change anything when it's made you to who you are today, right?
Exactly.
Good or bad, you can go back if you did certain bad things, but again, you learn. If you haven't learned from it, that's an issue. But if you learn from it and you're growing, why would you want to change anything? Because that's what made you to who you are.
Exactly, and there's beauty in the growth, beauty in the struggles. We may not see it at today, but we'll see it tomorrow.
And the one thing that's helped me, Reggie, and the word that you mentioned is gratitude. Right? It's helped me grow substantially, because you're always pissed off at the world, at this person, that person. But if you internalize that and say, hey, you know what? Just be grateful for just waking up in the morning. Some people don't get to do that. When you go to that level, you'll realize how blessed you really are.
But isn't that crazy?
It is crazy.
It's a concept that people take for granted.
They do.
Like you said, just waking up.
Yeah.
I get to a point now where gratitude is a practice I do every single morning when I wake up.
Nice.
But one thing in particularly is like, even going to the gym, I'm like, thank God I get a chance to be active and do this. Yeah. Or like you said, some other people might be in a different circumstance where they might be stuck to a wheelchair.
Yep.
And don't you think that person might want to get up one day and start walking and be active as you? But here we are complaining about certain things that we just don't have.
That's right. I always say, if you think you've got a shitty life, go to the cancer ward in the sick kids hospital and see how shitty your life really is.
Right?
Right.
I like that. No, that's good perspective. And people need to be aware of that.
Yeah, absolutely. And when you realize that and you wake up, like you said, I do the same thing. That exercise helped me before I go to bed, once when I get up. Just talk about what you're grateful for to yourself. And you realize that you've got more than enough.
Do you journal?
I used to. And I always, provide that to the clients that I have, especially if you've got a lot of negative thoughts. That's what helped me.
Yeah.
Is you do that brain dump. So before you go to bed, at least you can sleep in peace. That negativity won't keep you up, and, it just keeps brewing in your head. And that will eventually turn into positive thoughts.
Correct.
And then you start asking yourself questions. You can come up with answers for yourself. So journaling for me is very powerful. And I still do it time to time when something's bothering me. Just
write it down.
Get it out of you.
It's something that it's so funny, Rob. I used to laugh.
Yeah.
When people said, "Oh yeah, I journal." Journal. This guy journaling. What's he journaling about? But man, it is so underrated and so powerful. To a point where, I do it like 2 to 3 times a week now.
Nice.
It was never a thing. But what I find fascinating is we're talking about journaling, and I mentioned that I used to laugh at people that did it. If I was to ask a lot of people in the community, the Next 10 community, that concept of journaling, and that's just an example of so many different practices, I'd probably get 95% of the people saying they probably don't. not that there's anything wrong with it not doing it, but that 95% is one of the reasons why I want to do Next 10 as well. It's just to give them the tools. Give them the
Yes.
tools that I used to laugh at or kind of question, but help them realize the value in terms of what this could actually do, how
Yep.
powerful it is. And that's why I have to continuously share some of my stories. Like I sent an email this morning about going through my latest challenge throughout this 2024, right? So it's giving them glimpses of just overcoming challenges and turning those into success.
Yeah. So I want to take that point that you just mentioned and tied with another point you talked about is you talked about what people thought of you.
Mm-hmm.
Being judged is something we'll all go through.
Mm-hmm.
Everyone's always judging you. You're on social media. Everyone's got a perception and an idea of you. And the journaling piece or anything can make you look weak or like who does that kind of crap. How do you escape that and find out, like, become comfortable in your own skin to not give a shit about what people think of you? How do you get over that? I think that's one place where a lot of people get stuck is they fear being judged by others.
Mm-hmm. That I don't have a silver bullet, but I will say this. It comes through going through so many failures,
Mhm.
so many tests, so many challenges that you begin to realize that everything in front of you was an illusion. And then you also realize that people's perceptions and their thoughts and projections on you of what you can and can't do
That's right.
is because they just can't do it.
Yep.
You putting yourself out there. I remember one time I did this, this would have been 2020. Yeah, during the pandemic. I decided to do a video with a mop and I was dancing to a Bruno Mars song and I posted it on LinkedIn and my closest friends were like, dude, what are you doing? Why would you do that? It got a lot of engagement,
Yeah.
but they're like, what do you do? Like, these are the people that are closest to you. And it's just because I know that they don't have it in them to do that. And when you could recognize that we all, and here's the point that I'm trying to get at to help get over the judgment. Once you finally understand that everybody is on their own path, is the minute that you come to terms with who you are.
Yep.
And what you're set out to do in this world.
Absolutely.
Because everyone has a different purpose.
Exactly. And so when you talked about that authenticity, and when I said fearless, it's fearless of being judged by anybody.
Mm-hmm.
Right? So, awesome. So before we wrap up this podcast, Reggie, we've come to a segment where I call rapid fire questions.
Oh.
So I'll ask you a series of questions, and the first thing that comes to mind, just spit it out.
Pineapples.
What's the one thing that motivates you to keep pushing forward, even when the journey feels daunting or uncertain?
That I'm going to die one day, and I need to
Guaranteed.
just do what I need to do while I have this time here.
That's right. What is one daily practice or habit that helps you stay mentally resilient and focused on your goals?
Prayer, practice of gratitude.
Nice.
Yeah, those two things.
What is the best advice that you've ever received?
Make mistakes.
What's the worst advice that you've ever received?
Don't move to Costa Rica.
Okay. What do you fear the most?
Not doing what I am meant to be doing.
What's your greatest strength?
Laughter.
Good. What's the one word that describes Reggie best?
Curious.
And finally, where can people find you?
Instagram, Reggie.Waterman. And then follow Next 10. So that's at next10.life.
Awesome. We'll make sure we put this all on the links. We'll share the links with the audience. Again, I wanted to thank you so much for being with me today and sharing your inspiring stories and your knowledge with the folks out there. And for all those watching, thank you for joining us on another podcast. If you like this, follow, share, or hit the subscribe button, and we'll see you in the next episode. Take care, everybody.